Jesus didn't begin in Bethlehem. His story started with a promise made 2,000 years earlier to a man named Abraham.
Bible Lessons Daily. Ancient truth for modern life.
Think about a time you had to make a massive life decision. Most of us want to see the destination before taking that first step. We want to guarantee that the path ahead is clear. When Matthew sat down to document the life of Jesus, he chose a starting point hundreds of miles and years away from the events we usually associate with the story. He skipped over the garden where humanity began and moved past the manger in Bethlehem. Instead, in the very first paragraph of his record, Matthew introduces a man named Abraham. This genealogy links Jesus to a long-standing, binding agreement. It reveals that his life moved through a promise God established with a specific family centuries before history reached the first Christmas. In the ancient texts, Abraham first appears as a man named Abram. He was living an ordinary life in a bustling city called Ur. Then God gave him a staggering instruction. He told Abram to pack up, leave his land, walk away from his relatives, and travel toward a place that God would identify later. God left out the specifics of the route. He asked Abraham to travel toward an unknown horizon, anchored by a single verbal commitment. God promised to turn Abraham's descendants into a great nation and to use his family line to bring a blessing to every single family on earth. Abraham had no way to see how that would happen. Even so, he gathered his belongings and left, trusting the character of the one who called him. This is where we see the definition of faith. It's the willingness to act on a promise even while the final destination remains entirely hidden from view. However, Abraham's journey was far from a perfect success story. He experienced deep fear. He grew impatient. At several points, he tried to force God's promises to happen through his own human effort, rather than waiting. As the years stretched on, the situation looked physically impossible. Abram's body aged, and his wife Sarah was well past the age of having children. Yet, despite these obstacles and Abram's own failures, God followed through. The promised son, Isaac, was finally born. The survival of this story depended on the consistency of the one making the promise, rather than the perfection of the people receiving it. That commitment passed from Abram to his son, Isaac. From Isaac, it moved to Jacob, and then forward to his son, Judah. This specific line of ancestry continued through history, generation after generation, until it reached Jesus. By tracing this lineage, Matthew shows that Jesus was the arrival of the ultimate promise God had made 1,000 years earlier. The original promise of a global blessing required something far more permanent than land ownership or a growing population. Every generation in this family line moved the story closer to its true goal, the arrival of Christ himself. A journey that began with one man stepping out in faith arrived at the precise outcome God had described. This is what the book of 2 Corinthians means when it says, "For all the promises of God find their yes in him." We often share Abraham's perspective. We feel the pressure to know the whole plan for our lives, even though we usually only get enough light for the very next step. Abraham's story serves as a reminder that God's intentions always reach much further than our immediate line of sight. Moving forward in faith doesn't require us to hold the whole map. It just takes the trust to take the next illuminated step.
What lesson spoke to your heart today? Tell us in the comments, and subscribe for daily Bible wisdom.